Celeste Sherman will also talk with Richard Albein, CEO of the Alzheimer's Association's Houston and Southeast Texas chapter, who will break down a new report that's shedding light on the disease.
Plus, we'll also chat with Davinia Reed, the newly appointed CEO of the Houston Museum of African American Culture, who will tell us all about their current exhibits and programming.
And as always, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, by Metro, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. NPR has learned that White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles plans to convene a security meeting at the White House to reassess security protocol for the president and others following Saturday night's shooting outside the White House Correspondents' dinner at the Washington Hilton. A White House official not authorized to speak publicly says the gathering will include the White House operations team, Secret Service, and Department of Homeland Security leadership. They'll explore additional security options, possibly, as President Trump prepares to take part in events marking the 250th anniversary of American independence. Well, the president's praising the response of the Secret Service and law enforcement, but NPR's Tamara Keefe tells us he's also back to criticizing the press and Democrats.
In the hours after the dinner, Trump hit a note of unity. Then Sunday, in an interview with 60 Minutes, he was asked about political violence in America and what he, as president, can do to change the trajectory in the country.
It's always been there. People are assassinated, people are injured, people are hurt, and I'm not sure that there's any more now than there was. I do think that the hate speech of the Democrats, much more so, is very dangerous. I really think it's very dangerous for the country.
Of the alleged attacker, Trump said he was radicalized and, quote, probably a pretty sick guy. Tamara Keefe, NPR News.
The suspect is due to be arraigned this afternoon. Well, 36 hours after the shooting, the head of the British monarchy is making a historic state visit to the United States. President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump are set to welcome King Charles and Queen Camilla at the White House this afternoon. Iran's foreign minister held meetings in Russia today after he made stops in Pakistan and Oman, but there's still no indication Iran and the United States will sit down for another round of peace talks soon. Here's NPR's Aba Trawi.
Iran is coming under pressure from its regional neighbors and allies to open the Strait of Hormuz, which it now controls. China and neighbors Saudi Arabia and Qatar are pushing for oil and gas to be allowed to flow through the waterway again. Iran's also facing the consequences of the U.S. naval blockade on its ports. President Trump told Fox News on Sunday Iran has just 3 days of storage left before its oil pipelines explode from pressure, since it's running out of ships to store it on. Amina Bucker, head of Mideast Energy at research firm Kepler, says Iran has closer to 20 days of storage left.
But usually what happens is that before they run out of storage, they begin to slowly cut production.
And she says Iran has a southern oil terminal it could use if ships bypass that U.S. blockade. Aya Batrawi, NPR News, Dubai.
U.S. stocks are trading lower this hour. The Dow is down more than 100 points. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. One person died and 2 others have been hospitalized after a shooting near a nightclub in Midtown last night. This happened after a fight between several people, according to witnesses. KHOU-TV reports this happened near the Diosa nightclub. One of the 2 people hospitalized is in critical condition. The other is expected to survive after getting shot in the arm. Meanwhile, we're also learning this morning about an investigation in the Tomball area after a 17-year-old was accidentally shot. Deputies say the teenager's injuries are not expected to be life-threatening, and authorities are reminding folks about the importance of gun safety. No other details have been provided about the circumstances around this shooting. Well, one of the Houston Zoo's older residents has died. Looney Tune was the zoo's last surviving Ankole bull from Africa. He's been at the Houston Zoo since 2006 and lived to the ripe old age of 23. Looney Tune was recognizable for having a large pair of symmetrical horns, which folks often mistook for a longhorn. In sports, the Houston Rockets saved their season last night, beating the LA Lakers 115-96 at home. They're now down 3-1, with the series heading back to Los Angeles. Houston needs to win each of the next 3 games in order to advance to the playoffs. 2 of those games are on the road. Game 5 starts at 9 o'clock on Wednesday night. The Astros, meanwhile, avoid getting swept by the Yankees with a 7-4 win. They'll play Baltimore on the road tomorrow. Checking your weather, cloudy through mid-morning, then clearing with a high near 88. Tonight we'll see increasing clouds with a low around 76. Right now, mostly cloudy and hazy, 82 degrees on the UH campus. Get more news and information. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. RWJF is a national philanthropy working toward a future where health is no longer a privilege but a right. Learn more at rwjf.org.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now your hosts for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
And you know what's nice about that? He says Ernie and Celeste are
here. Actually here. Happy Monday, Houston. It's great to be with you. Today is April 27th, 2026.
Okay, you know, a lot of people come up to me and they're like, what is going on? I tune in. Sometimes you're there, sometimes Celeste's there. Frank was there, Frank's gone. What is going on? So today, finally, I hear Celeste Diaz-Sherman is ready to make an announcement.
That's right, Ernie.
What is it?
I want to share that this will be my final week right here on Houston Public Media and on Hello Houston. So
I make that gasp like I didn't know this was coming. I was in the know, but you're not leaving us because you're not happy.
No,
Please let everyone know what's going on.
It has absolutely not been an easy decision, but as many of us know, sometimes we make sacrifices and changes for the ones we love. And my husband works in energy, and so he is working in California now. And so we are wrapping up our school year here in Houston, and we will be heading to California this summer. And it is very bittersweet. It's been a very difficult decision because I absolutely love not just the work that I do, but the people that I work with. Mm-hmm. And Houston Public Media really has been a place where I have grown as a journalist and just as a woman in general. And so it was a tough decision, but it was one that I needed to be with my family.
I was hoping when you said sometimes we make hard decisions for the ones we love, the hard decision was going to be like, bye, Dan, I'm staying with Ernie. I was hoping that was going to be the decision you were going to make.
Well, it's very sweet. Ernie every morning goes, Celeste, do you have anything you want to tell me? Like, you know, you've changed your mind and things.
I've been hoping.
And yes, Hello Houston, rest assured, Hello Houston is going to be here. Ernie's going to be with you all. And there's going to be some new faces that you all will see. But the Hello Houston team is here, and we are very proud of the work. I am very proud of the work that I have personally done, and I have been supported. I was in an amazing position to really move from a producer role into an on-air role, and I got to sit next to Frank Billingsley and you, Ernie, and it has just been wonderful, and I will be here all week. You're not getting rid of me that quickly. I will be here all week, and so we will be doing an Ask Me Anything on our YouTube, or on our social media, on our Instagram, and you can also email me. And
you can call in now during the show today. We'll talk a little bit about it now and then when we come back at the top at noon. We'll take some of your calls and questions and well wishes. This isn't her farewell show.
This isn't my farewell show.
People are reacting. I'm watching the reactions come in right now, and they are rather surprised.
Yeah.
I will say that this has been bittersweet for me, because now I'm going to make it about myself, of course, is that we knew Frank was planning to leave us, and Celeste and I had a lot of plans moving forward and moving into the position of having it as a two-person show and all of that. And so when Celeste had to tell me that Dan was moving on, and unfortunately Celeste chose her children and her husband over me. It's been a hard adjustment, and it's bittersweet. I'm so excited for you and the opportunities you're going to have in California.
Yes. I can't yet say exactly what I'll be doing in California, but I'm going to have some more hopefully some very exciting news coming soon as well.
Wiping a tear from my eye.
Yeah, but it has been extremely bittersweet. I truly believe in the mission that Houston Public Media does, and the service that we provide to Houstonians and the greater Houston area. And so I love what I do. Yeah. And I love the opportunity that I've gotten and I've had on this show. Hello Houston is my pride and joy. And Ernie, and as Ernie mentioned, we talked about it a lot, and we have a great team, and I truly love sitting next to you every single day, Ernie.
On the flip side of that, I want to say we also have a great friendship, and we talk about this all the time, too. We'll get on the show, and we'll get into it on topics and stuff, and even in meetings, we don't always see things 100% the same way, which is great, because that's what you want in an anchor team. But at the end of the day, I always know Celeste has had my back, and I hope she knows I've always had hers, and so it's hard. It's like, you people just keep throwing these at me. First Frank leaves, now you're
Ernie.
leaving.
Yes.
You people stay with me. Don't go anywhere.
No. And you know what? Hey, you never know. I might be popping in every once in a while.
I still hope for your voice on the show. We'll be whatever you choose to do in California. I'm sure we can milk it for something for content-wise here. So we'll be reaching out to you.
Yes, absolutely. This is not a goodbye. This is a see you later. We will most likely be back in Houston. As many Houstonians know that work in energy and oil and gas, that's just kind of the way the industry works. And so we'll be out there for a few years, and we'll be back. So
Brandon writes on YouTube, that was some insane whiplash I just experienced. We'll miss you dearly, Celeste, and all us YouTubers wish you well on your new journey to the West Coast. Yeah. You say there's nothing good on the West Coast. Now there's one thing good on the West Coast. It'll be you.
Thank you, Ernie.
Yeah. But you'll come back to us.
Oh, yeah. And Noah Espinosa says, I feel like I'm saying a temporary goodbye to a friend. It is temporary.
I'm saying a temporary goodbye to a friend, and but I know, you build something and it lasts. Doris has sat in the chair. Doris and I worked together 20 some odd years ago, 25 years, and we have remained friends that entire time. So if you think you're getting off the hook,
nope,
you're stuck. Your kids are stuck with me.
No, I don't want to be off the hook. Yes, but we do have a great show today. Like I said, I'm here all week. I'm here until Friday is my last day, and so we are going to continue to do the great work, and Hello Houston's going to continue to do the great work. And I think that I'm excited. I think that there are going to be stories that need to be told in California, and I hope to be the one that gets to help share those. So, yeah.
Well, I think that what you have definitely done here is built a show, a community that shares ideas, and will continue to do that even with your departure, but hopefully temporarily. Your departure.
Yes.
The communication, I hope, will be permanent. Anyway,
Absolutely.
Okay. We're going to try now and get back on track, even though this is the only thing I want to talk about for the rest of the next 2 hours. But that's not what we're going to do. Nope. We're going to be finding out about new study coming out about Alzheimer's, and the Alzheimer's Association of Houston and Southeast Texas has some interesting news they want to share with us. We're also going to talk about a new direction over at the Houston Museum of African American Culture. They're going to be here with us. And right now, while we're doing this, they're getting ready to release the new Kinder report, looking at the Houston area survey, the brand new one. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have an exclusive coming up at noon, right as it gets released. We're going to be talking about what the findings are in it. Interesting how you see this world around us. So we've got a whole lot on the show today.
Yeah.
But as always, time to get into the headlines. Celeste, take us away.
Thank you, Ernie. The man accused of opening fire near the White House Correspondents' dinner is expected in federal court today. Authorities say 31-year-old Cole Allen will be arraigned on charges including assaulting a federal officer and using a firearm during a violent crime. Investigators say he rushed a security checkpoint at the Washington Hilton before being stopped by Secret Service. One agent was hit in a protective vest but is expected to recover. Video shows President Trump and Vice President Vance being rushed from the room as shots rang out. Now is the time to join us on Hello Houston. After hearing about gunfire at the high security event, like the White House Correspondents' dinner, what was your first reaction? And do you feel safe at large public events? Now is the time to give us a call, 713-440-8870.
I was out at dinner. One of my favorite places, the little super salads.
Yep.
And I started seeing this information on my phone. I was like, what is going on? Because usually that's the kind of event I would stay home and watch. You know, I always love the Correspondents' Dinner, and I watch it. And it was surprising, and as information kept coming in as we were learning what had happened and all that, and then I got home and I started watching all the coverage. I was very surprised at some of the behaviors that I saw. Not that I know what should happen. I mean, I remember seeing the footage of Reagan being shot and how that all played out, and how quickly the behavior was of everyone. This one seemed in some ways a slow-moving situation in regards to the way they moved people out of the hall, the way they went to the president. It seemed like first they had J.D. Vance out before they took the president out. It was the first lady seemed to recognize what was going on first and went down behind the table. The whole thing just played out differently than I thought, and it seemed to take a while for the folks. There was in the ones with the guns that came out, the security, and I'm not sure if it was Social Security, who it was that came out with the guns that had them. Social Security. Secret Service, I meant. I would love to see a force of Social Security protecting the president. They came out with the gun, but it seemed delayed in some ways. And I don't know how quickly I thought something would have happened. I would have thought behind the curtains that they're all there ready when you have a situation where you have an authority figure like that. I was just very confused by the whole thing. And also the way the gunmen seemed to run through security. And it was like the Secret Service's reaction even to that was interesting to me. But a lot of questions. I'm interested in it. Your thoughts?
You know, I listened to Wei Zhang, I think it was, the senior White House correspondent for CBS News, and she's the president of the White House Correspondents Association, and she basically was talking about that specific moment. And so zooming out a little bit, just from my take on what you're saying, was I think a lot of people were just totally caught off guard. You're talking about our highest level of elected official, journalist. I didn't see a ton of celebrities there, but I think that there were a lot of media celebrities, a lot of big, executives. And I really think it was 100% caught off guard, even though it was literally the president was there. Given that, from what I understand, based on what Wei Zhang said, was in that moment, the reason they were able to get to J.D. Vance so much quicker was because they were in the middle of a skit almost, where there was a comedian or there was an entertainer showing the president
a mentalist,
or a magician showing the president doing something. And they just did not. They were focused on what was happening in that moment. So by the time they got to the president had no idea what was really going on. It is, to me, what stands out is that we look at gun reform and we look at policy, and here we are again, seeing this happen, and you have all of the people that are making decisions and reporting on it in a room, and I'm curious what the conversation is going to be now.
And I'm assuming we are going to hear audio of it, that we're going to hear the communication that was happening. We always hear those after the event. I'm not even sure if it's out there yet or not, but it'd be interesting to hear. What were they saying? And we had a comment come in. We have a lot going on here. Sean Radigan writes, that first Secret Service agent that encountered him jumping out of the way real quick, the moment the guy, and he planned it. that if you run fast right through the metal detectors
Yes.
and stuff, he caught them all off guard. But in my mind, it's like Secret Service isn't supposed to be caught off guard. That's what they're there for. But then I heard someone say it does take him a little while to fumble to reach for his gun, but that he didn't shoot the guy. And they said, but we don't see, he runs out of frame. We don't know what he ran into, how many people were there. And you can't just shoot at someone because they run past you. So it's like, how do you decide? And I think it's interesting. There was minimal gunfire exchange, but the guy wasn't shot. He was tackled. So I'd like to know what happened in that moment more.
Right.
713-440-8870. We have Sean on the phone from South Houston. Sean, what's on your mind?
I feel like the distrust in the government right now is such that if you look at the comments online of the video and everything that's been released, so many people are saying that it was a false flag operation. It was something that was done to help revigor his falling poll numbers, all-time low poll numbers. And even like his closest allies like Tucker Carlson and others are saying sorry that I was so in favor of Trump. But now there's also coming out about the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania and how that might have been a false flag. So it's shocking to me that something so serious happened and people's apathy is just like, oh, whatever. It's all fake anyway. It's all false news.
Yeah, Sean, I've seen a lot online where they're talking about what you're talking about there. And the whole idea, if you take a step back and look at least the landscape, what you're saying, I can see why people go that way with it. We had just found out that the president had some of the lowest poll numbers any president has ever gotten, that there was disappointment in this presidency, even from his strongest supporters. And you see that whole conversation shifting very quickly now to people who have been critical of the president. Were they at fault? The president went on 60 Minutes and blamed the Democrats for their rhetoric, which may have led to this kind of reaction. So you definitely can see a sea change and you wonder, but there is still a person that was there. There was still a person there with a gun and also a rifle, and it seems knives too. He had a lot on him. So for it to be false flag, are you sacrificing yourself to help a mission so that you can, or is it that the Secret Service, the president's administration, somebody knows it's going to happen and they allow it to move forward so they can craft something? I'm not exactly sure how a false flag works when there are actually people involved like this. And I'm not that much of a conspiracy theorist, but it is definitely going to improve the president's polling. These kind of things do. Anyway, and I cut you off a minute ago, Celeste, because we took the call and you were going to say.
It was the call.
It was the call. Okay.
And we also had a YouTube comment, Noah Espinosa says, it's crazy that we live in a time where the first reaction of half the world is, this is crazy. This is clearly a false flag. How much distrust has this guy harnessed that we don't even trust attempts on his life? I think that is another question, right? Where we're looking at the desensitization of seeing video of people or, someone actually shooting or trying to kill the president of the United States. And we're like, well, is it real?
Right.
That is an alarming place to be in this country.
And there has always been questions around when a president assassination attempt or assassination actually has taken place. People always wonder, what really was going on?
Right.
Who did they act alone? What was the whole thing? So there's always distrust at that level, I think, in those stories. This seems uniquely different, that it's almost as though when you hear them talk of these false flags, that you always think that somehow the administration is involved in planning and setting these up, or the Trump camp is setting this up to try and move a story. It's a different time, and I would really love to look at that from a historical perspective. I've seen some presidential historians talking about it now, and the president made the comment, if I'm not mistaken, that, political violence has always been there. This is nothing new, the level at it. It does seem new. I can't remember this amount of attempts on a singular president.
Right.
But then again, I can only go so far back. Anyway, let us know what you think. And as we find more and learn more about what happened, we are thankful that our president is safe, that political violence has no place in our culture on either side of the aisle.
Right.
And neither should be calling for it. But also read the room. There is dissatisfaction in this country, and we need to find unity and bring ourselves together again. Keep communicating, 713-440-8870.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Richard Elbein, the CEO of Alzheimer's Association Houston and Southeast Texas chapter, about a new report. This is News 88.7.
Meet Dio Choco. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. This is his story. Visit ridemetro.org/Choco to find out where is Choco.
Genuinely and sincerely.
The psychology of falling in love fast and hard and the relationship pitfalls that accompany it. That's next time on Think.
You can hear Think tonight at 11.
The state of Texas is all in on the development of data centers, but just how much electricity will they demand from the power grid, and what does it mean for the rest of us? I'm Craig Cohen. We discuss on the next Houston Matters.
You can hear it tomorrow. It's on at 9 p.m.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Visit Galveston, presenting the first Bayfront Blues and Fine Art Festival, featuring blues musicians and fine artists from across the nation celebrating art and music, May 2nd and 3rd. More at visitgalveston.com. Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. Baylor's work centers on advancing health and medicine through research, education, and patient care.
Hi, I'm Manoush Zamarodi, and our world is changing so fast. On the TED Radio Hour, we invite innovators, researchers, and activists to unpack those changes with us.
Just about all companies are becoming technology companies or technology-enabled companies.
Listen to the TED Radio Hour from NPR every week for conversations that will deepen your understanding of our changing world.
The TED Radio Hour, Tuesdays at 9 p.m. on News 88.7.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
A new report from the Alzheimer's Association is shedding light on the growing impact of Alzheimer's disease, especially right here in Texas, while also revealing that many Americans still aren't sure how to protect their brain health. The latest data highlights not only the number of people affected, but also the heavy toll on families and caregivers. And joining us now to break it all down is Richard Elbein, the CEO of the Alzheimer's Association Houston and Southeast Texas chapter. Richard, welcome back to Hello Houston.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
Richard, quick question to start this conversation off. Oftentimes we're talking about autism, and one of the arguments for the increase in autism we see is better understanding of how to diagnose it. Is that similar with Alzheimer's? Are we getting a better understanding of at least identifying it earlier, and that is adding to increased numbers? Or is it something societal or something happening within us that these numbers are going up? And that's presupposing the numbers are going up.
Well, the numbers are definitely going up. And perhaps one of the main reasons the numbers is going up is the single biggest risk for developing Alzheimer's is age. Mm-hmm. And we know that we have an aging population. My generation, the boomers, we're aging into 65 plus. There are more and more of us. And so that certainly is driving the numbers. And then I do think you're right, Ernie, we're getting much better at identifying people with Alzheimer's disease. And so that's also true, although we know that we can recognize that people are developing some form of dementia and then trying to diagnose it. We're getting better at diagnosing, although recognizing people who are developing dementia probably has not changed over time.
Mm-hmm. So, Richard, then when we look at the numbers, how is the impact of Alzheimer's in Southeast Texas different from what we're seeing nationally?
Well, what we're seeing nationally is that the 2026 Alzheimer's disease facts and figures says that there are 7.4 million Americans living with Alzheimer's, and that it's 1 in 9 people over the age of 65. And of that number, 2/3 of people living with Alzheimer's are women. So it clearly is a women's disease. And we also know that 2/3 of the caregivers for persons with Alzheimer's are also women. So women are preferentially developing Alzheimer's and also are the caregivers. We also know that that African Americans are twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's disease as compared with whites, and that Latinos are 1.5 times as likely to develop Alzheimer's compared with whites.
Let me pause you right there for a second. What do you attribute that to? That seems pretty surprising.
So that is a great question, which we would love to be able to fully answer. And that's, you've just highlighted one of the many places where we need more research to understand what the driver is. There are a lot of possibilities. There are a lot of assumptions about the reasons for some of those differences. We have not conducted enough research to be able to answer that question.
Would it be safe to say, if you could conduct that research, seeing what would increase it in some communities over others would help in aiding understanding how not to get it? What could be done, because what is affecting this community that leads to more cases?
Absolutely. So, I think the obvious questions are whether there's a lifestyle impact, whether there's an impact of perhaps stressors or access to healthcare or access to diet and exercise. There could be genetic factors. So there are lots of questions that we would have, and we would love to be able to drill into all of those kinds of questions to answer them.
Can these numbers also be applied? Can you pull it out to all dementia, or is this specifically for Alzheimer's?
So there have been, so those numbers are for Alzheimer's and related dementia. And of course, then, we'd love to be able to segment it into Alzheimer's disease, frontotemporal dementia, Lewy body dementia.
Right.
There are many different causes of dementia. The most common cause of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. So often that's why we talk about Alzheimer's, because it's the most common cause.
Richard, the report says many Americans aren't sure how to protect their brain health. And I'm really curious what people are still getting wrong when it comes to prevention.
Well, we're just starting to really learn about prevention and Alzheimer's disease. So there's a special report, part of this overall facts and figures. There's a special report, Brain Health in America, Understanding and Supporting Lifelong Cognitive Health. And so in that special report, what we learned is that most Americans want to know something about, about protecting themselves, but only 1 in 10 feel like they know what to do. And we've just recently completed a study, the U.S. Pointer study, that just completed this past summer, and gave us some insight into lifestyle interventions that could reduce a person's risk of developing dementia. So we really have just demonstrated that diet, exercise, cognitive stimulation, and medical management of chronic conditions that put people at risk, that addressing those issues does really reduce a person's risk of developing dementia. But most Americans don't know that. And also most Americans are not doing what would be activities to reduce their risk. So most Americans, fewer than half, are getting adequate sleep. Fewer than half say they're getting 7 hours of sleep a night. And I think it was a quarter of Americans don't actually eat a healthy diet. So there's definitely a disconnect between Americans' desire to reduce their risk of Alzheimer's disease and to improve their brain health, and then the behaviors that would really address that risk.
Two questions in this area. First of all, I always hear this, and I don't know if it's just a marketing ploy. Doing puzzles helps. That seems like such a minor thing to do, but there's, I think, research behind the puzzle answer because it stimulates the brain in a different way. Is there any proof behind this or no?
And also, I imagine your motor skills. It would help with fine motor skills.
Well, so I think when we're talking about brain stimulation or cognitive stimulation and puzzles, often what we're talking about are puzzles, for example,
crossword
web-based puzzles,
Sudoku,
something that's requiring a lot of, it needs to be challenging. So often these web-based puzzles, they increase in difficulty the more you participate in them. And people find those kinds of cognitive stimulation to also be a little bit frustrating because you're being pushed to the edge of your cognitive ability. So it's not, like sitting down and just doing a crossword puzzle that's somewhat the same level of stimulation or challenge day after day. It has to really ramp up on the challenge.
But is there any research that says if, in fact, you are doing these things and they ramp up, that they have less chances of developing these? So it does have science behind it.
Yes, that's part of that lifestyle study that looked at cognitive stimulation. And yes, real cognitive stimulation does seem to help as part of an overall lifestyle intervention. So it would also include exercise and diet. Those things all come together and can reduce risk of dementia and improve cognitive function or brain health.
The other side of that being the genetics factor. And I'm curious, if you have family members above you that have developed these dementias, Alzheimer's, are you more likely to develop it? Do we see that genetic? And I understand that it may not be genetics because you're in the same environment as the person above you, so it's hard to parse out which way. But do we see that?
So there definitely are genetic risk factors that increase the risk, which is different than being predictive of developing a disease. So in the same way that someone who has heart disease in their family, they're at a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's, which perhaps should be motivation to change lifestyle, to eat a little bit healthier diet, add a little more exercise. In the same way, someone who has dementia in their family, that increases their risk, which could be motivation then to think about modifying diet and eating a little healthier, adding a little more exercise, maybe doing some cognitively stimulating activities, making sure that we're monitoring our blood pressure, our risk of diabetes. So the risk is not the same as predicting that someone would develop a disease, but it certainly should be a warning to perhaps modify lifestyle to reduce their risk. So if genetics is increasing risk, then think about doing other things that reduce risk.
Richard, we're talking about the patients right now, but this report really highlights caregivers as well. And, what kind of toll this is taking on for families. And I'm curious from this report, what was most shocking to you?
Well, certainly one of the things that was shocking is right now the anticipated lifetime cost of caring for someone with Alzheimer's is about $400,000. Wow. And about 70% of that $400,000 is borne by the family needing to cover those costs. So that's a huge amount of money, a huge financial impact. And then also that a high percentage of caregivers reported depression, and that they were putting their own health, maintaining their own health at risk because they were so busy providing care for the person with dementia. So there's this huge financial impact, and then there's just the emotional and physical impact for caregivers that they're, that they're depressed and that they're probably not managing their own health care while they're spending so much time being concerned and making sure that they're maintaining the health of the person they're caring for.
We are speaking with Richard Elbein, the CEO of the Alzheimer's Association Houston and Southeast Texas chapter. If you would like to join the conversation, you can call or text 713-440-8870. Let's take Mike from Katie's on the line. Mike, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hello, thank you. My question is, it's my understanding that there's still no definitive test for Alzheimer's except a post-mortem. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, so that certainly was the case in years past. And then, in just the last decade, there were two very effective ways of identifying Alzheimer's disease in a person who was living with Alzheimer's. And one is neuroimaging, which is fairly expensive, and another is a lumbar puncture or spinal tap, which is probably more uncomfortable but not as expensive. And in the last year, there are two approved blood tests that would confirm Alzheimer's disease in a person who has demonstrated cognitive changes. So definitely a person can get an accurate diagnosis with a blood test that's fairly not invasive and fairly inexpensive. And those are very accurate. So you don't have to wait for a post-mortem brain biopsy.
Just for understanding, what are they looking for in the blood? What does the blood tell us? Is it still tied back to plaques and tangles, or is it something else?
Absolutely. Yes, it is. So a person who has plaques and tangles, which those are the two hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease, amyloid plaque and tau tangles. So those two proteins, when someone, for example, when they started doing lumbar puncture, they were, and lumbar puncture is looking at the same fluid that surrounds the brain is also in the spinal cord. So they were looking for amyloid and tau in that lumbar puncture. And in the last year, what's been approved are two different blood tests that are looking at amyloid and tau that's in the blood. And it's confirming the same thing, which is that these cognitive changes that are being observed are connected to the plaques and tangles in the brain by finding the presence of amyloid and tau in the blood.
And just for point of reference really quickly, are we saying that it's set science now and definitive that plaques and tangles is it? Because I know there has been in the past some question about maybe we're missing something here.
So plaques and tangles are now and have always been the hallmark, what diagnoses someone as having Alzheimer's disease is those amyloid plaques and tau tangles. So that's what defines Alzheimer's disease. Ernie, what you're referring to is the question about how to treat Alzheimer's is, should we be treating the plaques and tangles, or is there some other process or perhaps something prior to the plaques and tangles? So there's been some question about where the research should be focused in trying to treat or prevent Alzheimer's disease. And that's probably, there will always be an ongoing discussion about that. The medications that have been approved in the last 3 years that actually slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease. So there are two medications. They're both monoclonal antibodies that attack the amyloid in the brain. And they have been demonstrated to slow the progression of the disease. So again, the question is that the final story, or is there also going to be developed treatments that address the tau in the brain? And I mean, I think we hope so, that there will be additional treatments that will deal with that. But we certainly know that that's where the focus has been, is on amyloid and tau.
We have quite a few calls that we want to get to. Let's go to Chris from Cyprus. Chris, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your question or comment for Richard?
Oh, I wanted to just ask, is there any physical activities such as like swimming, Tai Chi, or yoga that's beneficial to help left, right brain activity or stimulation?
So I'm not sure about when you talk about left or right brain stimulation. I don't know the answer to that. I can tell you that in the U.S. pointer study that was just completed, that that exercise was part of that study. The goal of exercise is to participate in 150 minutes of aerobic activity a week. So, so I think that's what, 30 minutes 5 times a week. And that it would be aerobic. So swimming, if we were to make a list of aerobic activities, certainly swimming is one of them, jogging, cycling. I think perhaps depending on how you vacuum your house, that could also be aerobic. So there are many different aerobic activities that would qualify for being part of that overall plan to try and improve brain health and reduce risk of dementia.
And we're going to take one more call just as we are about to wrap up, and from the medical center. And what's your comment or question for Richard?
Hi, Celeste. Hi, Ernie. You had an immunologist on last week who happened to mention that long-term histamine use was in a study was related to Alzheimer's or dementia, which concerned me. I wonder if the doctor knows anything of this study.
Richard, know anything about that?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to clarify, I'm not a doctor. I'm the executive for the Alzheimer's Association. So I've been around a long time and certainly am familiar with many of the studies that have been conducted around Alzheimer's disease. I'm not familiar with a study that looked at histamine use and the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So I can't comment on that.
Richard Elbein is the CEO of the Alzheimer's Association Houston and Southeast Texas chapter. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today with this information on Hello Houston.
Absolutely. Thank you for including us.
Thank you, Richard.
And coming up, we're going to highlight the Houston Museum of African American Culture. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Meet Camilla, songwriter, world-class violinist, and award-winning multi-genre artist. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. Visit ridemetro.org/Camilla to learn more about his ride.
Here now.
It's coming up just a little bit more than an hour from now on News 88.7.
Wall Street banks get all the press, sure. Small local banks, though, are doing most of the really hard work.
Small banks, community banks are right to be afraid.
I'm Kai Rizdal, loans, clients, and stablecoin, oh my. Smaller banks, next time on Marketplace.
You can hear Marketplace tonight. It's on at 6:30.
Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro Now.
Support comes from the Houston Symphony presenting Joshua Bell Returns, The Elements in Concert. Grammy Award-winning violinist Joshua Bell performs a multimedia exploration of love, death, and the hereafter. May 7th, 9th, and 10th at Jones Hall, houstonsymphony.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
Here on Hello Houston, we like to give Houstonians the opportunity to learn about the city's various arts and cultural institutions by highlighting them on our show. And today we're highlighting the Houston Museum of African American Culture, whose exhibitions and community programs showcase and explore African American art and history, while also examining the social issues of our current time. And to tell us more about the museum's mission and its current exhibitions and programming, please welcome Davinia Reed, the newly appointed CEO of the Houston Museum of African American Culture. Davinia, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We're happy to have you.
We are. I guess the big question to start with is, now that you're in this role, what are your plans for not just the museum, but also the whole concept of a living cultural space within our city?
So my plans for the museum is to make the museum evolve into not just a place you visit, but a place where you belong. I want the entire city to know about the Houston Museum of African American Culture, and that it's a museum, even though it states African American culture, it's a museum for all people.
It's a museum, I've been there a number of times, and I often wonder why it's not more seen. Why it's not on people's radar more. And I'm assuming that's part of what you're here to do.
That's
because
correct.
It's a wonderful establishment to have in our city.
Absolutely. So we're trying to get more, spread the word about the museum, because we are nicely nestled in the museum district, so people don't really realize that we're sitting there. But we're making a lot of changes as we've as I've become the newly appointed CEO. And so we're hoping to get the word out so Houston will tell everyone, hey, this is the spot you're supposed to be at when you come here.
In the process of getting this position for you, what did the board or the hiring committee tell you they were hoping for the future of the museum?
So for me, I was already an employee of the museum, actually, and I was promoted up. So they wanted me to just get the museum going, bridging the gap between the younger audience as well as the older patrons that we already have. So just spread the word, bridging that gap to get everyone, making everyone aware about the museum.
And as you know, you talk about bridging that gap. I'm curious, right? Because when we think of museums, we think of history, we think of the past and going and seeing things that have happened. But you all also touch on current social issues. So how do you balance that in, making sure that you're preserving history as well as making this current and relevant today?
So for us, we tend to say around HMAC that we tackle the hard conversations. Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't go in our favor. It takes away from our funding, but and that's an unfortunate thing, but we do have some private donors who make sure that we're able to tackle all those social questions, and we can give everyone a voice. We want to make sure everyone has a voice and everyone is heard.
So Davinia, which I have to ask you then, what are some of the hard conversations that y'all are having right now?
So really, sustainability right now is a difficult conversation, because we know, like, with this current administration, they're shutting down different museums, the DEI situation. So we're just making sure that we're staying planted and that everyone is able to express themselves, and that they know that we see them, we hear them, we're with them, and we're trying to stay forging forward to make sure that everyone has a place to call home.
The old adage is those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. And I think that that's so true, especially when you talk about a museum. It's saying we have the resources of looking at the past so you know what's going on in the present. In the conversations we're having today, how important is it for this audience to go back and know the history that led to these moments?
Oh, it's extremely important. Like I said, we're a contemporary museum, but we definitely examine the past, and we make the past relevant in everything that we do. Just to give your audience a sneak peek, we have these amazing African artifacts that we're going to create an exhibition, and it's actually going to be a permanent exhibition for us coming up in 2027, so that we don't only house the contemporary art, which is what we're known for, but we also have a piece of history as well.
Davinia, as you've moved into this leadership role at the museum, I'm curious if there's something that you've learned that perhaps has shifted your perspective.
So stepping into the CEO role, my perspective has shifted a lot. Before this role, I was the chief operating officer, and although I was running all the operations, now I'm the face of the museum. I'm the operations.
Yep.
I'm the brains behind the brand. So it has definitely shifted the direction that I want the museum to go into. But I have an amazing team. Yeah. So it's not just me, and with my amazing team, we're actually, like I said, making changes so that the entire city is aware of the museum.
You talk about contemporary art scene, and I've been through to see the exhibits and such, and I'm wondering, how do you see the contemporary art scene focusing right now? A few years back, we saw a lot of street art, a lot of things that came up from the urban core into the art and the expression. What's happening today in that scene?
So what I see today is a lot of contemporary artists are focusing on justice and what we see as justice being. Right now we have Candy Lopez, Allegiance to the People. It's about justice. We have Eden, which that's by Clarence Hayward, and he talks about how you bring biblical practices into paradise. So everyone is trying to magnify the whole justice thing, but also let's bring it to paradise, how we can all get along and we're stronger together because of that.
You can look at music sometimes and you can see a culture through what they're expressing in the music. And in the sense, when times are harder, you can see a darker tone in music. And then there's other times when you can hear hope in music. When you're looking at the art scene today, are we looking at and worrying more so, and I know these are terrible generalizations, but of the trouble and the issues and the pressures facing, or in the hope and the resilience and the moving forward? Is there a particular direction you're seeing movements go right now?
I think we're getting a little bit of both. I think we're getting a little bit of both because, again, like two of the exhibitions that we have on view right now, both artists are saying, hey, I'm seen, but I want you to see how the perspective of the oppression looks as well. So this is what it looks like to be seen, but this is what it looks like when you oppress me and make me feel like I'm unseen.
Yeah. Okay, talking about things that should be seen. Tell me about a piece that's in the museum right now that every time you walk by it, you stop and it catches you.
So Candy Lopez has a piece called City Girls. And every time I walk in that upstairs gallery, I stop and I look at that piece because it represents every woman. I mean, race does not matter. It represents every woman. And for me, representation really matters because I want people to know that, hey, again, you're seen. We see you, we hear you, and we feel you.
Right. Davinia, I'm curious, whenever you look at this role and you say that you want to make sure that the museum feels very accessible to everyone, that they are seen, what are you doing to make sure that, museums can be intimidating?
Right.
And that people do feel welcome?
So one of the things that we do, the HMAC is free to the public. So
excellent.
We're free. You can become a member to gain access to previews and artist dinners. However, we're free to the public, and we try to make that known to everyone that we're free to the public. And then also, along with us being free to the public, we do a lot of public surveys so that we can know what everyone wants to hear about. What do you want to see? How do you feel?
Really quickly on that issue, how important to you in your position do you feel it is that you are curating to a community what they need as opposed to reflecting what they think they need?
So that's extremely important. And sometimes I'm going to be honest with you, we don't get it right, but we try to have that happy median to where we show them what they should see, but also what you need to see as well.
Yeah.
So in a year, what does success look like?
So in a year, success looks like for me, What does a success
Contract renewal, probably for you.
Well, no,
that's a no-brainer.
No, that's a no-brainer there.
Yeah, that's a
and
no-brainer.
I've been there for 10
Yeah.
years, so my contract it should renew. but for me, what I see in the future of HMAC is more children's programs. We want to incorporate more children's programs. At our Artist Talk Saturday, we had a young man there, and I think he said he was 11 years old. And the questions that he asked were thought-provoking. Yeah. And no one was whispering in his ear to tell him what to say. He just was raising his hand, asking these questions. So we want to incorporate more children's programs into what we're doing for the next year.
And Davinia Reed is the CEO of the Houston Museum of African American Culture. Davinia, thank you for joining us on Hello Houston.
Thank you for having me.
And coming up, we're going to continue discussing today's top headlines, and we're going to also learn about an effort to save Memorial City Mall.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Near Northwest Management District, celebrating 25 years at the intersection of innovation. More information at nnmd.org.
Well, they're saying now we may see some sunshine soon. It'll be a partly sunny afternoon, the high getting up to near 89. Mostly cloudy tonight, a low near 76. It's 82. This is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12:01.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The man accused of opening fire during Saturday's White House Correspondents' dinner is expected to make his first court appearance later this hour. Steve Futterman reports investigators are learning more about 31-year-old Cole Allen's life in Southern California.
FBI agents went door to door yesterday, speaking with neighbors of the suspect, trying to figure out what may have led him to carry out his attack at the Correspondents' dinner. Those who know Allen say they can't figure it out. Moses Jambazian, whose church Allen attended when he was in college, says he was a popular person.
He was faithful in his attendance, and he was always friendly and courteous to everyone.
Officials believe Allen traveled from California to Washington by train, possibly as a way to avoid detection by bypassing more stringent security measures on air flights. For NPR News, I'm Steve Futterman in Los Angeles.
NPR has learned that White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles is expected to convene a security meeting following Saturday's shooting outside the Washington Hilton Ballroom, where the president, vice president, lawmakers, and hundreds more guests were gathered for the annual dinner. MS Now investigative journalist Carol Lenning says she's spoken with current and former Secret Service agents about security protocol at such events.
There's a playbook, if you will, for how to work security at the Hilton, and it hasn't changed a lot over the years. It was certainly heightened for this event at the Hilton in some small ways, but in many ways it is identical to other presidential visits. And the threat climate is actually a lot higher, and Secret Service agents are concerned about that.
Carol Lenning on NPR's Here and Now. Well, despite heightened security concerns, the White House is preparing to greet King Charles and Queen Camilla today. Private tea kicks off 4 days of the British monarch's state visit. Bahrain is chairing a high-level meeting at the United Nations on maritime security, and it is using the meeting to call on Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Here's NPR's Michelle Kellerman.
The foreign minister of Bahrain was surrounded by dozens of ambassadors, including Mike Waltz of the U.S., to show a united front against Iran. The statement by Abdulatif bin Rashid Al Zayani did not mention the U.S. role in blockading Iranian ports.
We are already seeing global consequences from Iranian actions, which are impeding international shipping, driving up costs and sending shockwaves through energy markets.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says his office is ready to help the parties reach an agreement to reopen the strait to, in his words, let the global economy breathe. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the United Nations.
U.S. stocks are mixed this hour. The Dow is down 62 points. You're listening to NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Tom Perumian. A man is dead after opening fire at store employees at a Sam's Club off I-10 and Uvalde on the east side. HPD Assistant Chief Christy Smith says the employee went to confront the man who had allegedly been breaking into cars when he pulled a gun.
Employees who were inside of the business ran outside when they heard that going on. At this time, the suspect shot at the employees of the store who retreated back inside of the store. The suspect followed them inside of the store and continued shooting.
Chief Smith says officers confronted the man inside the store when a shootout took place. The suspect was hit multiple times and died a short time later. None of the officers or employees were hurt. The incident took place Saturday night, and the store was closed yesterday. It is expected to reopen today. Early voting continues through tomorrow in the special election to fill Texas Senate District 4, which was left vacant when Brandon Creighton resigned to become chancellor of the Texas Tech University system. But that's only the first of 3 overlapping election cycles that run through late May. Tanisha Hudspeth oversees the process as Harris County Clerk.
Now, there are many times we're having conversation where we have to stop each other and say, okay, which election are you talking about right now?
You can find more details about what election contests you're eligible to vote in and when by going to your county's election website. For Harris County, that's harrisvotes.com. In sports, the Rockets, they roared back against the Lakers last night with a decisive 115-96 win. Now, LA leads 3-1 in the playoffs. They'll pick it up again on Wednesday. Checking your weather, cloudy through mid-morning, then clearing with a high near 88. Tonight we'll see increasing cloudiness with a low around 76. Right now, mostly cloudy and hazy, 82 degrees on the UH campus. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. RWJF is a national philanthropy working toward a future where health is no longer a privilege but a right. Learn more at rwjf.org.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now your hosts for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
Welcome back to the second hour of Hello Houston. Today is April 27th. 2026. You know, Ernie, I was out last week.
Were you? Well, you came in on Wednesday, the one day I was out.
Right. We missed each other last week. And April 23rd was my mom's birthday, and I didn't get a chance to wish her happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mom.
Happy birthday, Mom.
Yay. You can tell how old she is?
No, Lydia would not appreciate that.
Lydia would not be happy with that one.
We're just happy she's still here with us.
Yes.
But yeah.
But talking of people being here with us, if you missed the first hour, you might not have heard Celeste's big announcement. So in a nutshell, I'll let her tell you again.
Yes, this is my last week here at Houston Public Media on Hello Houston. Hello Houston is not going anywhere, as I mentioned. It's been a very tough decision, but my family will be moving to California. My husband's job is taking us out there for a few years, and hopefully I am praying that we will be back and Houston Public Media will always be my home. So
what gives me hope in all of that is you're not selling your house here.
No.
That makes me think, okay, if they're not going to sell, then there's a good chance she'll come back to us.
We live in a city where there is so much industry that I truly know that, so many people understand that people make moves like this, especially in the energy world and working in oil and gas, make these 2 to 3 years outside of Houston. Sometimes they're expat roles, sometimes they're for like us, we're going out to California, and we'll be back. And Houston is such an incredible city that we're we're sad to go, but we will hopefully be back.
Well, I'm sad to see you go.
Yeah.
We had such plans.
We had plans.
We had a future together. I'm
No.
just not handling these divorces very well. I've
No,
had
this
two
is
of
not
them
a-
now.
This is not a divorce. This is like a separation.
A
just
trial
trial.
separation. Till she runs off to California, becomes a big star, and then she'll be Ernie. Who?
No. Houston will always be home. You know, the way this city has embraced me and this last year has just absolutely been incredible. And I feel like, you know, I love working in radio because I feel like I want people to hear my voice and not necessarily what I look like or what, you know, how things are, but rather truly the information that I can provide. And the fact that I get to sit here, it's a privilege, Ernie, that I get to sit next to you and ask questions. So, yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, we are going to surely miss you, and you will always live with us in our family here. And do stories for us. Send us stuff.
Yeah, I mean, don't
do
worry.
a cold coffee here and there.
I will
Send them
come
in.
back for cold coffee. No, I will always, as I said, and you like how I'm keep saying this to my supervisors, you know, Houston Public Media is my home.
Yes.
This is temporary.
Celeste is manifesting the future for herself here at Houston Public Media.
But I've already started to receive quite a few really, really nice and thoughtful emails. And I just want to tell y'all again, thank you so much for just embracing me.
Yeah. And for those of you who are probably a lot like me, when it comes to you watch your media and you get used to pairings and teams together and you build a relationship with them, the transition is always hard. And as it's hard for you as listeners, it's hard for us as partners in these seats. And so it's going to be hard. But thank you for what you have given. We knew what we wanted from this show even before we were both on this show. And we talked and thought about it and thought what we could do. And we're so happy that you've all come along for the ride so far. And we look forward to you joining the ride and the rest of what we have to do on this show as we continue to move forward.
And the truth is you guys are in the best hands ever because we really did make this show. We started out where the fourth seat, the fourth person at this table is you, our listener, our viewer, our YouTuber who joins that conversation. Now you get to have it with Ernie. And so be sure to utilize that. Really, I mean it. Utilize it. If there is something that you think we should cover, Ernie is here. He is a pillar within our community. And, you know, like I said, I'm not going away too long.
You, though, bring up a very good point. I want to remind all of you that now that I'm down to just me here, we're going to replace, and there's going to be new voices here.
Well,
too.
you'll never replace
we won't
me.
replace.
But
Somebody else may come in and help
in
me
my
out in
seat.
here. But yeah, you're replaceable. You know that. But it's more the burden's on you folks. You got to join us. Call in, text us, message us. Your voice is going to have a bigger space to be heard here now too, and I entertain that and look forward to it because we already feel like you co-host the show with us every day. So pressure's on now. You got to work now. You can't just listen. You got to join in, be part of the conversation.
Yep.
Okay, we've got a lot to still talk about. Real quick, text came in. Jen from Clear Lake says, we will definitely miss Celeste. She has been such a lovely part of the NPR community. And that's just one of many of these messages we're getting.
Thank you.
But work still goes on. We got to make her work for at least one more week.
I'm here the whole week, so this is not my goodbye.
Yeah, we'll be doing this every day.
So just keep those coming in all week. I'm here all week.
Okay, take us into, which isn't as much fun
That's
and
right.
jovial
We
all the
still
time.
have
Take
headlines.
us into the headlines.
A 2023 Texas law allowing state police to arrest people suspected of entering the country illegally can now take effect after a federal appeals court lifted a years-long block. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals removed the injunction on Friday, not by ruling on the law's constitutionality, but by finding the groups challenging it didn't have legal standing to sue. Known as Senate Bill 4, the measure was passed amid record border crossings, with Texas lawmakers arguing the state needed to act. Immigration enforcement has traditionally been handled by the federal government, and the law is still expected to face ongoing legal challenges. Attorney General Ken Paxton called the decision a major win for public safety and law enforcement. What are your thoughts on this ruling? Give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870.
Well, I guess the best place for me to start with this is that there are, immigration law is to be enforced. We do enforce and believe in the letter of the law.
Correct.
The problem is people misunderstand what asylum seeking is and how that plays into our law. Now, illegals crossing the border to do illicit behavior in our country, absolutely, we don't want that.
Right.
People that are fleeing persecution, that are coming to this country as a safe haven, that is written into our law, or at least used to be understood in our law. And I don't want us to move away from that. That is what we are here for. We are a bring us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. That's what we are. Bring them, come, but follow the laws of how we do it. And don't change the laws to make it harder for people who truly need the support and help of this country, which is what we are built on. So that's my immigration little spiel there. I agree, you cannot have illegal you can't have recklessness on the border and just anyone coming into your country aimlessly. But we have regulations already in place to understand that. And if you come into this, I'm sorry, I'm just going off. But if you come into this country and you are following the right process of becoming a member, if you come in, if you file for asylum, if you're going to your court hearings, you are not the same thing as somebody who is just coming to this country as a gang member to move illicit drugs or whatever they claim is happening and then, destroy our culture. That there are very different things at play.
Well, it's very interesting, right? Right here locally, just in the last 2 to 3 weeks, we have seen Senate Bill 4 being discussed in depth at our Houston City Council. And it was basically coming down to this Senate Bill 4 when we looked at the clash between the Houston City Council looking and pushing forward it was very controversial policy on how Houston Police Department was going to work with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And our City Council right here in Houston basically said they really looked at Senate Bill 4 for verbiage to make sure that they constitutionally were following the law. And once again, we saw state leaders object and say, nope, you cannot do that based on Senate Bill 4. Now, obviously, last week it went back to vote, and there was an amendment that was made. But here we are once again based on verbiage and looking at the legality of it and questioning the constitutionality of it all. And it goes down to more than ever, we have to understand how these laws and policies affect us right here in our own backyard.
Yeah. What do you think? What are your feelings on this this suspended law that's now back in play? What do you think about the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals lifting the temporary injunction on it? 713-440-8870. And I guess the bigger question is, how should we actually reform immigration policy in this country? Where do we have it right? Where do we have it wrong? Where do we already have laws that support things that you feel are doing a fine job? And where do you think we need room for improvement? Because there is, yes, however you look at it, there is issues with our immigration policy and what we can do to improve it without making people feel subhuman and as though we are hunting them down to throw them out of the country when they've come from a country where they were literally hunted down. And so I'm just curious what people think. How do we find the balance in all of this? 713-440-8870.
We did receive a text. This person says, my thoughts, all I can do is cry. I'm feeling tongue-tied, although being here natively.
Yep, I think that represents a lot of people's feelings.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like Texas should have more say and control in regard to immigration. However, how is local law enforcement going to use this new power? That comes from Matthew over on one of our YouTubers in there.
And, I think this is just, again, the tension that we're seeing in regards to what does immigration policy look like? What does public safety look like? And how can we hold both of those in a humane as also effective way?
Yeah.
So, what else do we have going on, Ernie?
You know what? Why don't we move on to this is a story I kind of find some interest and joy in. So we need a little of that here. Yeah, no, you can read it to me.
Okay, so there was an update to a story that apparently... Okay, I was not here for that.
No, we're moving to D3.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh,
D3. That's why I'm pointing at you for it. Yes, because this is an uplifting story.
Okay. Sorry about that, Ernie.
You know what it is? I'll tell you what it is. It's King Charles III and Queen Camilla arrive in Washington today for a state visit commemorating the 250th anniversary of the U.S. declaring independence from Britain. That's the story I wanted to get to because I'm fascinated by royal trips and what it means, and in today's day and age, how you handle it. During their 4-day trip, they'll attend a state banquet hosted by Trump at the White House, and the king will address Congress. When I say that, does that feel antiquated to you when you say the king will address?
No.
It doesn't?
I mean, listen, we're Americans and we're just automatically supposed to not like anything royal. But I love the royal family, and I say that, I think it's...
You like the idea of a royal family?
I don't want it in my own country. Right. I like it over there across the pond. But, I think it's interesting. I like the pageantry and following it, and there's something to it. But it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, this visit does come at a low point in relationship between us and the UK, including disputes over the war in Iran, the lingering controversy surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. We all know about Prince Andrew involved in that. But despite these challenges, many people hope that the visit will help ease tensions and strengthen the long-standing ties between the countries. And that's the part that I'm interested in. Well,
sorry, Ernie, I totally...
Did I read something wrong?
No, I jumped in the middle of your...
No, it's okay. My thing about it is, this is exactly the point. When you question why a country has a monarchy, what is it supposed to do? How do you work it in a world when they also have their own legislation, their own governmental branch, and there is still a king? This is what they do. They're kind of a PR spokesperson for the country. We've seen the prime minister and the president have words, concerns, how the relationship builds. Here, the king gets to come in separate from that, build a softer relationship with our country in the UK, take you back to a more comfortable feeling without it being a political match back and forth.
I think it's great as long as we don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, it does cost to throw a state dinner for the president or for the king. There's going to be costs and security and all of that come with it. And there was also question with the shooting that happened the attempted, I guess it is a shooting, the gunman at the press dinner, what that meant for the visit, but the visit stayed on track. They're still going to come.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of pageantry, a lot of symbolism there.
I'm looking forward to the pageantry. I want to see it. We do have a quote on here that came in from my British computer guy. He still can't bring himself to calling her queen. Oh, come on, Camilla. She's been there long enough. I think.
Sean Radigan says, does Celeste own William and Catherine China teacups? Actually, I do have one. I had a cousin who lived in London. And when they got married, I have a commemorative teacup. I also have a Buckingham China little teacup. I'll use it this week.
Well, I think the cool thing is I think it's going to help with fostering better relationships between us and the UK. You don't want to see that relationship go astray. It's too important to both of our securities and stability in today's day and age. So hopefully this will help ease things over.
Sorry, this made me laugh. I have to laugh. GT7 says, I will miss Celeste saying full stop when she finishes a passionate opinion and her professionalism.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're very excited because this is breaking news.
Yes, coming up on Hello Houston, the director of the Houston Population Research Center at the Kinder Institute for Urban Research, Daniel Potter, discusses the results of their annual Houston survey. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Brought regime change in Iran. There's clearly not been a regime change. We still don't know how this new era of leadership is going to evolve. But whether the people sitting across the table from the American negotiating team are more motivated to reach a deal, I think yes, they are.
I'm Natalie Kitroeff. That's Today on the Daily from the New York Times.
You can hear it tonight at 7.
Houston Matters highlights the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston. And we do it live on the air weekday mornings at 9 on News 88.7. But we know you're not always available then to listen. So subscribe to our podcast wherever you get yours, or find each day's program to stream online at your leisure at houstonpublicmedia.org. And reach out with questions or comments anytime. Email us at talk@houstonmatters.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. Baylor's work centers on advancing health and medicine through research, education, and patient care.
Support comes from the Grand 1894 Opera House, presenting Dinosaur World Live, a stage production featuring interactive elements and life-size dinosaur puppets, including a Triceratops, a T-Rex, and more, May 2nd and 3rd. thegrand.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
It's that time of year again. The Kinder Institute of Urban Research just released their annual Houston Kinder Area Study, their 45th to be exact. For nearly half a century, the Kinder Institute has surveyed Houston area residents about their thoughts and attitudes on everything, from the economy and the environment to the importance of social connections. It's the longest citywide survey of its kind in the country. Something that isn't surprising about this year's result, the economy was identified by residents as the biggest problem facing the Houston area. What is surprising, the percentage of residents who rated the region's job opportunities as good or excellent dropped nearly 30 percentage points. It's the largest one-year decline since the oil crisis in the early 1980s. To help us break it all down is a good friend of our show, Daniel Potter, who is the director of the Houston Population Research Center at the Kinder Institute for Urban Research. Daniel, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
How big is your business card for that whole title, to be honest?
It's a trifold.
Okay, I am always at one place excited about the report and then always confused by the report on the same time. And I think I finally found peace within myself on it. And my problem always was, who cares what people think? Let's talk about what the numbers really show. Is the economy good or bad? I don't care what people think about it. Mm-hmm. You can look at the numbers, see is the economy good or bad. Over time, I've learned to appreciate these opinion polls because they do tell us something different than the sheer numbers. How do you explain it?
Perception is reality. And so if I feel that the economy is going well, I'm going to operate, conduct myself, and carry on business in a way that the economy is doing well. If I do not feel that the economy is doing well, I'm going to respond accordingly. And we can look at a lot of different aspects of life in that regard as well. Now, it is important for us to make sure that for some of these things, is this purely a perception thing, or is there an objective set of data that you can look at in the background to say, oh, that is more than perception. That is a perception that is capturing reality. And when it came to residents' attitudes about the economy this year, that's the kind of information that we were seeing.
So I'm curious, now all this odds betting, the Kelshi markets and all those kind of things, for the most part, are Houston's views of the world with things you can find data to support or not, are they matching reality? Or do we mostly have a perception that lives in its own realm?
Yeah, so if we think about the jobs one, because again, just like you pointed out there, we saw a massive drop in people's attitudes about the job opportunities in the Houston area. Well, when you look at the data, Houston was projected to add 70,000 jobs in 2025. It added less than 20,000. And so when you're looking at that kind of data, for folks to tell you, yeah, the job situation here is just not quite what we were hoping for it to be, there's an alignment that exists there as well.
And I guess for me, in today's world that we live in, especially politically, so much of what I see is we're going to tell you our perception of this, and I'm talking from the higher echelons, and that's going to be our reality because that's what we're going to say. And people are very lost in finding it. Do you find there's a difference in between, I don't know if you go into it in the study as well as this, but people's philosophical political beliefs, conservatives, liberals, do they see different realities?
So we have explored differences based upon people's political ideologies in the past. This year's report, one of the things we focused on was their income and the way that people from different income levels might view what's going on here. Because again, like, if the economy is not going so great, perhaps it's the fact that really there's pressure on lower and middle income earners. And we definitely do see evidence to suggest that there are pressures in particular on lower and middle income earners. But we were also asking for people to reflect on their own financial situation. And we had a higher percent of residents reporting worse financial situations across all income levels. So whether or not I was making $150,000 or $15,000, we had people, a higher percent of people this year than last year, expressing greater financial strain.
There's a lot with education. I'm going way out of order on all of this, but we'll start there. And I was curious, in staying in this whole realm of it, you talk about education funding is one of the questions you talk about in the survey. Do you find people that have children in schools respond differently than people who don't? People who may have children or grandchildren even in school care more about funding, and people who don't say no, I don't think? Or is that, does the community as a whole support a current idea?
Yeah, so when it comes to funding of public education, there are definitely differences by age group. And that is oftentimes one of the proxies we will use to get at this question of, do I have school-age children or not? Right. And one of the reasons for that is, while we might know that you have a child in your household, we're not always going to know if that person's child is attending an ISD or a charter.
And I was going to ask that too. Does it change depending on where they put these kids?
Exactly. And so sometimes we have that information based on, the different survey that we're doing, but we don't always necessarily have that information up to date every single time. And so we'll oftentimes use age as a proxy, where if I'm in my, late 20s, even maybe early 30s to perhaps 50, that's that age group of folks that probably have, if they're going to have children, those children are going to be somewhere in that school age group. That age group typically does have higher support for public education spending than, say, older adults, where there's more of a sentiment that we spend enough on public education to provide a quality education.
Okay, we're going to start with my line of questions now that I have in front of me, because I think they at least are in order of some sort. Do you find that voting patterns match what your survey finds? Do you, and by that I'm asking, if you ask about gun control and people in your survey say this about gun control, if you look at the voting record, are voters supporting those ideas?
So for us, our priority has been elevating the voices of residents. Right. And so when we do that, it oftentimes means that we are taking voters and non-voters and just pulling them right on in together. Right. And so when we were looking at questions around gun control, we were not attempting to differentiate between voter and non-voter. And part of that is perhaps a philosophical belief that if you are elected to office, you're elected to represent all of the people, right, not just the people that happen to cast that vote for you. And so we don't have that distinction broken down.
I think I'm asking, though, a little more general. Do you see that what your results say in the survey are what we see in the real world happening in voting?
Oh, absolutely not.
Oh, really?
That the level of support that we are observing within our and maybe I'm misunderstanding the meaning of voting here, but the question that we were asking about, say, universal background checks, right? We ended up finding over 90% of residents. Fascinating. It's a huge number. But when you look at what laws are being put into place and the type of legislation that's getting passed, these are discussed as if they are third rail, very sensitive, very controversial issues. They are not. We could be doing much more to push on those issues because there is such uniform support for them.
Huh, interesting. But go on.
Well, part of the challenge here is we don't realize that there's that uniform support. So again, one of the things we did this year, which was the first time we've ever tried this, is beyond just saying, hey, how do you think about universal background checks for guns, for example? We asked you, and then we also asked you what you thought this other group thought about universal background checks. And so we can think very specifically about politics here, where we ask Democrats, okay, what do you think about universal background checks? Okay, what do you think Republicans think about universal background checks? And our perception is we do not agree on this topic. In fact, Democrats think about 34% of Republicans support universal background checks, and Republicans think about 74% of Democrats support universal background checks. So they're telling you we think we are different from them on this issue. And the reality is 94% of Democrats support universal background checks, and 91% of Republicans support universal background checks. So not only are they wrong in their perception of the other, they're actually aligned in the perceptions they have in their favoring of this type of policy. And it's an almost universal favoring of this. That this is not a controversial issue at all.
And I guess that's where you have in notes that I have here in front of me, most people are unaware of the attitudes and preferences of the other, that we don't have a good understanding of those who aren't us.
Yeah. So we did this, again, as we were talking about, we're asking you questions and asking you what other people thought. And we did that for about 9 different questions. And we counted an answer right if they were within plus or minus 10 points of the actual value that was reported. And so it's a scale of 0 to 100. So it would be, what percent of Republicans do you think supports universal background checks? It's going to be 0 to 100. And so statistically, you have a 1 in 5 chance of getting it right if you just guessed at random.
Right.
Well, so we asked 9 questions in total. And on average, people got 2 of them correct. In other words, they knew what the other group was thinking 2 times. 2
times.
Which is no better than random guessing. Which is, in other words, to say, we don't know what other people are thinking, but we surely have perceptions. And those, again, going back to our initial questions, those perceptions are driving a lot of how we are behaving and engaging with one another, because we do have these issues that we share a shocking amount of alignment on. But instead, we're told we should fight with one another.
I want to remind everyone we're talking with Daniel Potter. He is the director of the Houston Population Research Center at the Kinder Institute for Urban Research, talking about the just released, is it by this year, 2026?
2026.
2026. I don't know if you had the year before on it because it's early. Houston Kinder area study. And we're talking about all of this stuff that's in front of us about it. It continues to fascinate me, so much of it. I was curious, though, how complete the questions are to what we see. So, for example, how important is it to control gun ownership? I don't know in just those words what that means. Is there more explainer in these questions, or is it just as important as how a person perceives the question and their own answer to it than what it actually says?
So the question text you're seeing is the question text that's asked. And so it is very broad. It is very general. And there is criticism to be levied there that, well, you and I might agree that, sure, we should do something to control it, but specifically what that control should be is all of a sudden where you could see these very divergent perspectives and opinions. And so one of the things we have done is try to explore more explicitly. And so this is where, again, the universal background checks comes in. That is a very specific question. Do you favor universal background checks on all gun sales? Period, full stop. And your responses can range from I oppose that, strongly opposed to strongly favor. And so those are more specifically asked, but we also offer some general sentiment questions as well.
And in that particular question, between 7 and 12% did not think it was important, meaning the rest either somewhat or very important.
Yes.
And I say 7 to 12 because you actually break it up into 3 different categories, which are 3 different counties. So you're looking at Fort Bend, Montgomery, and Harris County.
Yes.
We are all right here together. How different are we?
So this is one of those things where we want to make sure that when we're making these kind of statements and claims, we're not just talking about Harris County in these types of statements. And so we separate it out to provide the opportunity for us to see, are we different? And from our perspective, the reality is, yes, there are differences. No, those differences are not big. They're much more differences on the, sort of on the periphery, as opposed to the general sentiment that really is shared across these counties.
Let me ask you this, and I don't know if you've been able to do this too. If you grouped together Fort Bend, Montgomery, and Harris County, excluding the city of Houston, and then had city of Houston, would that county group and the city group be different? Do we know that?
So we did not do that split out for this particular study. When we have done that type of separation before, trying to distinguish between incorporated and unincorporated Harris County or City of Houston and not City of Houston, you do see some differences. But again, it's one of degree and not quality. That it is a matter of moving around on the edges, not this completely different, diametrically opposed view of things.
You also already talked a little bit about income playing a difference in how people view things. The divide there, do you see it growing or not? Is the higher earner moving further away from what the lower income earner sees, or are they staying pretty consistent over time?
We definitely see disparities in terms of experiences, as well as some perceptions that people are having about the Houston area, suggesting that there is, unfortunately, sometimes a tale of two cities when it comes to Houston and in the region more broadly, that for those who are higher earners, there are different experiences and different perceptions of what is going on in the city, different priorities for the city and the region than for folks that might be lower earners. And so we do try to make it a point to break out our data by income level to make clear that we can see concentrations of certain challenges, again, among those lower and middle income earners. And here I'm thinking about things like housing affordability, as well as things about like, the job opportunity situation. But, again, for a lot of what we were seeing this year, there was a degree of consistency across income levels for certain indicators as well.
Opinions on crime. Are we seeing that? I was looking at, I was kind of fascinated by what I was seeing in it didn't always match up with what I thought it would. And so I'm curious, do people in the lower income bracket feel that crime is worse than the people in the higher? Do the people in the higher income bracket have an idea of crime that may not match those people that are in the lower income that may actually come in contact with a more street crime or daily crime?
So when we were exploring people's perceptions around crime and safety, we incorporated income into our analyses to try to understand what was the contribution that it was making. And there are for sure some differences. And so, one of the metrics that we were looking at was a neighborhood crime index. And this was about people reporting about criminal and nuisance behavior that was happening in their neighborhood. And within that context, you could see differences across income levels, with folks in lower income levels reporting slightly higher levels of those types of activities within their neighborhood, and then those folks earning more. But income was not the strongest driver of those experiences. That rather personal experience was important, as well as just general feelings and senses of feeling safe within the Houston area, as well as the neighborhood that I was in, that it wasn't necessarily my income per se, so much as the neighborhood. And then the final piece that was really important in our analyses there was around social connectedness, that the degree to which you feel connected to your neighbors, to your, the folks you are living nearby, others within your neighborhood, that is creating a sense of safety for people. Or you could flip it on its head, which is to say the lack of connectedness that people are feeling is contributing to their feelings of safety here in the Houston area.
When you talk about connectedness, have we seen a change before, during pandemic era, and after? And are we a different people now than we were before the pandemic?
So this is one of the first years where we've tried to collect very intentionally this information about social cohesion, social cohesion, as well as personal and professional connections. And so to try and draw a trend with the data we have is very, very difficult. At the exact same time, we've collected other information to try to get at people's perceptions of this question. And there is definitely a degree to which folks feel less connected coming out of the pandemic. Now, again, if I were to compare people's social lives before the pandemic and after the pandemic, what the reality might be is, again, unfortunately, we don't have the data to determine that. But that perception at least exists there, that the pandemic was detrimental to people's social lives.
It's funny. A lot of people are going to be thinking about this summer, what's going to be my beach reading? You know what I'm going to be reading? The Kinder Survey. I'm just fascinated by it. But before we run out of time, which I know they're timing me out now, but overall, what is our view of the area we live in? Who are we as a people? Sum it up that way.
Yeah, I think that we are people that right now are going through some very, very real economic strains and concerns, and that only time will tell how those work out. That we are still watching new information come in to help us understand, are we making corrections and headed back up into that growth and job development, or are we stagnated, or are we even potentially taking a further step down? Time is going to tell. I think more importantly than that, because when we do think about the economy, that is something that like you and I have our role to play in it, but ultimately these are local, state, and federal policies that are going to really, really drive that sector there. Our social connections are something that you and I have a role to play, and that role is critically important. And that within the study that we did, we saw our social connections mattering for our wealth, our health, and our sense of safety. And we were seen as one of the strongest predictors of those three things. And so as we're thinking about those summer plans, how are we making those plans with other people? How are we helping to find ways to connect? And again, we're not talking about find my nemesis and make them my friend. We're talking about finding the folks I already live nearby.
Yeah.
And building those relationships and connections, and that those relationships and connections will pay off for both you individually as well as for us collectively. And so there's a selfish reason to get connected with other people that will have massively good dividends for all of us when it's all said and done.
In the introduction, I said this is the longest citywide survey of its kind in the country, which implies to me there are other citywide surveys in other places in this country. How do we compare to other cities, if you know?
So we are in the process of figuring out ways of better collaborating across cities. And so we're in the process of talking with places like Atlanta, Philadelphia. We have just launched surveys in partnership with Texas A&M in Dallas, Fort Worth, El Paso, and Hidalgo, which is our GV territory. And so we are hopefully going to have some additional information to be better able to understand where Houston exists within a larger spectrum of other spaces and places. I also always have the response of, I don't live there. I live here, and we all live here. And so to the degree that we're looking at some of our challenges and we're thinking about, well, how do we compare elsewhere? Let's focus on how we're doing here. And if something isn't acceptable to us here, it doesn't matter if we're the best of the best. If it's not acceptable to us, we should still be doing something about it.
I guess I'm also curious, though, is that how everyone is in other cities? Or is that something uniquely us? But we don't have that answer, at least right at this moment. But what we do have is all the answers that are in the 45th Kinder Houston Area Survey. If people want to read it, where can they go to find it online?
kinder.rice.edu/research.
There you go. Daniel Potter, thank you very much for joining us again. Daniel is the director of the Houston Population Research Center at the Kinder Institute for Urban Research. Thank you for joining us today and for sharing this with us hot off the presses.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
There's more Hello Houston to come right after this. More conversations. Stay with us. You're listening to News 88.7.
I'm Steven. It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
After recording many albums with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Flea has his first solo album. We'll talk about being afraid to go home when he was young, how the Chili Peppers tried to be the wildest band ever during the punk rock era, and how he's changed. Join us.
You Can Hear Fresh Air is coming up tonight at 8 o'clock.
Support comes from Metro. World Cup planning includes transit improvements intended to serve Houston after the final match. Metro provides bus, rail, and paratransit service and continues mobility enhancements across the region. More at ridemetro.org/Metro Now.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV 8 at 7, Antiques Roadshow visits Grant's Farm in St. Louis, Missouri. Then at 8, it's episode 3 of Ken Burns' The American Revolution. Tonight on TV 8 or on the PBS app.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from British International School of Houston, a learning environment designed to shape a generation of creative and resilient global citizens. More at bishouston.org. Support comes from the Welcome Group and Welcome Wilson Jr., President and CEO. With over 9 million square feet of manufacturing and industrial facilities in over 130 locations in Texas and the Southeast. More at welcomegroup.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's Ernie Manous and Celeste Diaz-Sherman.
Memorial City Mall has announced that its ice rink, located in West Houston, will be permanently closing on July 31st due to renovations. This announcement has sparked protests from Houston residents, particularly among the city's skating community, as the rink was one of the few year-round ice skating locations in the region. And earlier this month, local parent Charlotte Knoll created the Change.org petition. Save the Memorial City Ice Rink, which currently has more than 7,000 signatures. Joining us now to tell us more about this effort to save the rink are Amy Good, an 8 and under hockey coach at Memorial City and vice president of HTX Storm Girls Hockey Association, and Marc Tushnet, the Oil Kings Hockey Club tournament director and Hockey Day in Houston co-chair. Amy and Marc, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you.
You know, I guess we'll start right with the beginning of all of this, is what both of your reactions were when you heard that they were planning to close the rink July 31st. Initial reaction to it, considering your connection to the rink.
Sure. I could start. As a coach, it happened 2 days after the rink had closed for some temporary repairs. And we knew that there might be a long-term plan to redevelop the rink, but to have it happen so suddenly for us was really abrupt and difficult to communicate to our parents and our families, especially because the rink had been closed for 2 months earlier in the year as well.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was actually devastating news because we have the biggest adult recreational hockey tournament here in Houston, and Memorial City is one of the big venues that we hosted at.
I guess then the next question to follow, hearing about the activities that happen there and the importance, and that it is not like many things that get closed or people have forgotten it exists and eventually they say, well, let's just get rid of it, no one's using it. Here is something that seems to be an active part of the community, that a decision was made to close it. What was the purpose behind that decision? What do you understand is why they thought it wasn't worth preserving?
We understand that Metro Nationals has plans to redevelop that area into a different kind of a space. And so where the site where the actual ice rink is currently, we understand will be a kind of a roadway or a parking lot, but have other space developed in that area as part of the mall complex.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I know that the rink is going on. I've been there since 2003 when it opened, and its life expectancy of the rink is about 25 years, and it's getting to that point.
Really? I want to think about that. 25 years.
Yeah, if in fact, though, financially it made sense to them, like the community raised, and they shouldn't for a private entity anyway, but if the community raised money to like offset cost, is that the kind of stuff that could sway decisions here? Or is it, this is done, they are doing this, it's not a money thing, it's a redevelopment thing, and we're moving forward?
So far, it seems like it's been more of a redevelopment thing. So we've had corporate sponsors raise their hand. We've had individuals approach us and say, we'd love to buy the rink. Can we talk to the ownership about that? Those offers have gone to the ownership and haven't gotten any acceptances so far. Mostly we just want to try to be part of the conversation, right? We know how many people this is impacting, not just hockey where we are, but figure skating, adults, youth, ice dancing, all these. And it's impacting so many people. We want to just be engaged and say, can we help to solve the problem?
And it sounds like you guys have really garnered some support with 7,000 signatures. And I'm curious, what you're hearing and what people are saying around this community. And did you expect that kind of response?
Yeah, and that's what this group's been great about, is starting the conversation and getting involved in making a plan for the future. And like I said, the rink is at a point where we can definitely do something new, and in this development, definitely something new can be done.
And who for people who might not be in this community or ice skate, talk to us a little bit why losing this is, going to be a big deal for Houston and your community.
It's interesting because with the Olympics just happening and the men's and women's gold medals, everyone's super excited about hockey. So we're seeing more and more people wanting to get into it, right? And it starts with learn to skate, and just getting your skating lessons. And then you go through figure skating or hockey, depending on kind of what your path is. And so it sort of cuts out the access to that for a lot of people. We're already short on ice in Houston. Dallas has over 20 sheets of ice. We have just a few here in Houston. So taking one of them out is a really big impact to thousands of people who are using Memorial City on a weekly basis.
Over on YouTube, Sean writes us and said, I hear they're planning a new NHL practice facility in some Houston suburb. Does that help at all?
There are a couple of rinks that are, so there's a rink actually opening in Richmond, Texas, I think this summertime right now, which puts 2 sheets of ice. We're super excited about it. It's going to be a very nice rink, but it is quite a bit further out for those in central Houston, right? So if you think about an hour plus drive each way, that's a little challenging to go to several days a week. There's also a group called the Blue Line Slapshot Group who's working on developing a rink in North Houston to potentially bring an ECHL franchise as well. So all these things are tremendous, and they reflect the increasing demand that we see in Houston for ice. But for the folks in central Houston, it still is a bit of a struggle.
And so what has, management at Memorial City Mall told y'all? What type of response are y'all getting based on the advocacy that y'all have done so far?
For the most part, we've had some folks like Representative Lacey Hull, who was on this morning with Houston Matters, who've had some direct discussions, and they've declined the offers for additional sponsorship or ownership discussions. They have been working to repair the ice at Memorial City Mall temporarily, so that it can at least be up and running through the end of July 31st, which was their commitment in their letter from a few weeks ago.
To help people understand, Marc, if you can, about how much the ice is used currently at Memorial City. What exactly is going away?
Well, a lot's going away. Every program I can think of between youth hockey, development hockey, women's hockey, girls hockey, and a huge adult presentation at Memorial City. There is, believe it or not, going to displace over 500 adult hockey players right now.
So I guess then to continue on that line, all right, so this for-profit entity that's there, this mall, isn't going to continue it. Is there an opportunity, with 7,000 people already signing a petition, with this interest now, can you folks come together and build a community rink in that area, or is it too cost prohibitive for something like that? Is there an alternative plan that could work at this moment with all this, as you mentioned, attention into ice activities?
Sure, yeah. We're exploring all options right now because we know we can't control the future, and we can only do what we can grab support for. So we've been collecting contacts. We've got a lot of inbound inquiries to our website, savememorialrink.org. People, real estate, funding, corporate, looking at potential collaboration with the government to look at that. But a new rink, if you look at it, is potentially a 3 to 5 year project. $20 to $60 million of investment, depending on kind of what range, what size, what amenities you're going to have, and things of that nature. So it's not impossible, but it's a monumental task, right? And so we're welcoming all ideas at this point.
And that's what I'm kind of curious about. What would you say is the ultimate goal here? Are y'all trying to save the rink completely, entirely? Are y'all trying to delay the closure of it? What would be the best outcome for you all in your community?
Yeah, I think there's several options that would be palatable, and some more lead time, knowing how long those projects are. If we had, no one ever has 3 to 5 years of warning, but if you did, that would be helpful because that would really help to avoid the gap that we're approaching right now. So an extension would be wonderful, or the willingness to collaborate and redevelop at another location.
Over on YouTube, one of our folks chimed in and said it takes 3 years to build a new rink. For the Richmond rink, it's been over 6 years and it's still not open. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, no, it is. The Richmond rink's been a project ongoing for quite a while. A lot of red tape with the city and getting permits and getting everything up and going. They're almost ready to go. They should be ready to go this summer. But yes, it's super expensive to build a new rink. To find the land in Houston is expensive. But right now, the popularity of ice sports is actually just flying. And with the NHL team eventually going to be making its way to Houston, we need more ice, not less ice.
Yeah. Well, good luck on this mission. It seems like I will say, though, other people have come on this show trying to save something, and somebody heard it, and something good has happened. Garden Oaks Theater. Yeah. So hopefully maybe somebody will hear this today and help move this along. And maybe Memorial City will see the benefits of keeping that rink, and maybe they'll alter their view.
And where can people go if they want to support you all?
Our website's a central hub for all information, so it's savememorialrink.org. We've also have presence on social media. You can find all those through the website.
Amy Good and Marc Tushnet are fighting to save the Memorial City Ice Rink, and you can check out and sign their petition on change.org. Amy, Marc, thank you both for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And that brings us to the end of our show. We have run out of time.
Well, it's good to be back with you after a week of us being apart.
Let's
do it again tomorrow.
We'll be back. We'll be back with more conversations tomorrow. We're also going to discuss new research that suggests high levels of screen time may raise dementia risks. This is News 88.7. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altine, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Good Reason Houston. Houston's future is in a classroom today. Through research and collaboration, Good Reason Houston brings the region together to help more students graduate ready to earn a living